Hello world, Dev here, and welcome to my full review of the Asus TUF A15 gaming laptop with the brand new Ryzen 4800H processor from AMD. But really quickly, before we get into today's video, I want to take a quick second to let you guys know that the best way to get in touch with me, whether it's to give me feedback on my videos and my content, or to ask me questions about your next laptop purchase or PC build, is definitely by joining my Discord server. Also, as my community is continuing to grow, I am doing weekly giveaways of Steam keys in my Discord server. So I invite you at the end of this video to take a look at the description box down below. So to start out my full review of the Asus TUF A15 gaming laptop, I actually want to take a quick second to talk about what exactly makes up a review. So for me, a laptop review comes down to two parts. One, a combination of empirical data and observations from standard tests like benchmarks, for example, but also a perspective deeply rooted in personal background and life experiences. So when you're watching someone's review, what kind of person that is and what kind of devices they grew up using, for example, all these different types of things make the difference between whether a review is actually going to reflect how you feel about the device, for example. I've seen reviews praising this laptop as one of the fastest game experiences in the market at this time. And I've also seen reviews basically writing this laptop off as trash, for a few compromises that Asus did make with this laptop, and we'll get more into that, and there definitely are a few use cases that this laptop definitely is not good for. So quick rundown of the specs. As I said before, it does have the brand new Ryzen 4800H processor from AMD, and that's super exciting because it's a smaller die size, it's a next generation from AMD, it uses the same power draw as Intel's equivalent this year, but yet it has 2 additional cores. So with hyper-threading, we have 8 cores, 16 logical threads, which is just a great thing for creators, and we'll get more into that in the benchmarks, of course. My variant here has the GeForce RTX 2060, but there are other variants with the GeForce GTX 1660 Ti with 15.6-inch and 17.3-inch screens, and I'll leave links to those down below in the video description. My RTX 2060 variant came with 16 gigabytes of DDR4, a 1 terabyte PCIe NVMe SSD, a whopping 90 watt-hour battery, which is another quick spoiler, one of the main stars of the show is here. And then it also comes with a 144 Hz Full HD IPS panel. Okay, and getting into the hardware, this laptop's design, for me, knocked it out of the park. I think previous versions of this product line, most of them looked very plastic and very cheap to me. Not bad in terms of style, just you could clearly tell that these were budget-oriented laptops. What I can say is that is not the case for this variant. This one has a full metal back lid that is cool to the touch. I absolutely love it. And on the 4 corners, it has this really kind of like rugged look here with these 4 like rivet-looking things on the corners. I just purely love the style. The bottom of the chassis is plastic, and the removable cover, that's totally fine and understandable. I don't really have any gripes or problems or issues there. The trackpad is Windows Precision, and it felt incredibly smooth and accurate to use. I had no problems whatsoever using this built-in trackpad whenever I didn't have my dedicated external USB mouse on me. There are left and right mouse click dedicated buttons at the bottom of the trackpad, and they do feel good and clicky, but they don't make any audible clicking noise, thankfully. The keyboard on this laptop actually felt great to use, especially in gaming. There was a good amount of travel, springiness with the key recovering very quickly from key presses, so definitely had no issues using this in some of the competitive gaming and a lot of the battle royale games that are very popular right now. There are a few gripes with this keyboard. One thing is, I don't mind the textured WASD keys. I actually think the look is okay, but there's this weird little like bump on the W key, and it's just a little bit, it protrudes a little bit too much for my taste. I don't really think it feels that comfortable. I would remove that if I was in charge of the design here, the little bump on the W key. One thing I do wish that this keyboard had was per key RGB lighting, or at least zones. Anything we could do to configure a little bit more custom in terms of the RGB effects and the looks here, like for example what we see from MSI on their SteelSeries keyboards. And another thing, I couldn't get the keyboard backlight to stay on persistently. It has an auto sleep function built in where after, I think it's like 7 to 8 seconds, the backlight turns off to save battery, and that's fine. But I'm the kind of user where when I have it plugged in, I kind of just want the lights to stay on and everything to stay consistent while I'm using it. So I don't need to like press an arrow key or something random to get the lights to come back on so then I can see if I'm using this in a dark environment. There was really no settings to enable that, just to disable the sleep function. I really hope they add some update in the Asus Armory Create software in the future. Speakers on this laptop were incredible, miles better than anything I expected from bottom-firing laptop speakers. This is the area where 9 out of 10 manufacturers will cut corners because speakers is not something you commonly think about from the spec sheet, but these speakers, they had great volume levels that I could hear all the details from in-game, as well as crisp, clear bass that didn't distort at loud volume levels either. I was able to turn the volume up to its maximum while gaming, and I wasn't bothered by any distortion or any tinny higher pitch sound that I've heard from lower quality laptop speakers in the past. Taking a look at the I/O here, what we can see is our DC barrel power connector up here at the top, followed by a Gigabit Ethernet port, which is nice, an HDMI port, followed by 2 USB 3.0 ports, and then this is really interesting, I think. I'm very thankful to have this here. This is a USB 3.2 Generation 2 Type-C port. So this port is actually capable of powering an external display. So with our HDMI port and this USB-C port, you are able to use dual displays from this laptop. So you can use this like a really full workstation if you wanted to. And then of course we do have our headphone jack. And over on the other side of the laptop, there's really not much to see here. We have a Kensington lock and then another USB 2.0 port. And here we could take a look at the inside of the chassis, and what we can see here is, in my opinion, a very good cooling solution. You can see separate fans and copper heat pipes on both sides of the laptop for the CPU and GPU, which is what we like to see. Here are our memory slots, and they both are occupied to 8GB modules for 16GB. So if you do want to upgrade to higher, you will need to replace both modules. Here's that factory installed M.2 NVMe from Intel, the 660p series. There is an additional M.2 NVMe slot, so the user is able to add a second SSD very easily without adding any extra bulk. And here we have what is, in my opinion, the second star of the show besides that new Ryzen chip, the 90 watt-hour battery, which ships at least here with the North American variant. This laptop, I was able to easily get 7 hours of battery life on average. I do use pretty aggressive power saving techniques by using a variety of tweaks. If you're interested in seeing what those tweaks are that I do, take a look in the video description down below. I actually uploaded a video on my Windows battery saving techniques. So take a look at that at the end of this video if you're interested on techniques to save battery. This TUF A15 gaming laptop does have a built-in webcam. Thankfully, they didn't exclude that like some of the other models we've seen from Asus in the past, but it is super basic, very low quality. You're not going to really want to use this for anything in terms of recording or streaming probably, but in terms of just video calls that you need to do just with families, friends, or coworkers, it's definitely good enough. There is no Windows Hello, unfortunately. I definitely would have loved to see some form of, biometric entry or facial recognition, anything like that. Not present here, but I'm glad that we have a webcam, so I'm not going to complain. All right, and the screen. It's definitely not the best. You do need to temper your expectations with this a little bit. Asus did definitely compromise here a little bit. Right off the bat, I noticed colors were not quite as vibrant or punchy as I would have liked. They just looked a little bit washed out, and there are color profiles you can change in the Asus Armory Create software built in, so you could definitely play with the color profiles and tweak the settings so you can see if maybe there's another setting that you like that looks a little bit better. But what I will say is that it's not a very color accurate display. So definitely, if color accuracy is something that you really care about for your work, then you're definitely going to want to look elsewhere. But if you're someone who's using this laptop primarily for school or for work, or whether it's for gaming or computing or engineering work, this screen is not going to hold you back. What I will say is it did feel very fast while I was gaming. I didn't perceive any noticeable types of things pulling me out of my immersion in gameplay. While I was gaming, I was focused on the game, and the screen did not detach from that. There are some reviews out there basically saying the screen is complete trash, and while I will say it's not the strong point of this laptop, it didn't ever pull me away from my game. It didn't ever create a barrier from using this laptop that would stop me from enjoying it or accomplishing a certain task. And it's so funny to me now just to be using all these products and these laptops, and to be talking about how we need the fast refresh rate, 144 hertz. I grew up, I'm no stranger to the $200 laptop, bottom of the bin on sale at your local Micro Center or Fry's. I'm a PC gamer at heart for sure. But for years I had computers that could not run any game that I actually wanted to run on it faster than 20 or 30 FPS. And just to contrast that last thought there of 20 to 30 FPS gaming, let's get into these gaming benchmarks, what you all really came for. And starting out this list, we have Shadow of the Tomb Raider. I ran this at Ultra with RTX enabled, and I was pulling off an average of 65 frames per second. Very happy with that for a mobile GPU, the RTX 2060, and we're definitely seeing that the CPU is not holding us back or giving us any issues there. Moving on to Call of Duty Warzone, I was getting on Ultra with RTX enabled about 90 FPS. I was seeing slightly higher numbers when indoors, but what I did for these tests is I put the lowest maintainable number that I was able to observe from either indoor, outdoor, or any environment. Fortnite and Apex Legends, I also ran at their respective maximum settings, and both of those games I was able to maintain an average of 100 FPS while outdoors, while indoors easily maxing out my frame rate by the refresh rate of the screen at 144 FPS. And here we have our Passmark performance test numbers, and what I can see here right away is really strong numbers from that CPU. Okay, 19,833, that's 28% faster than the Intel Core i7-9750H. Okay, and then what I see from the 3D graphics mark, that score came out on par with what we should expect from the RTX 2060, and then they actually put a fairly good quality SSD. I was very happy with the DiskMark performance numbers observed here. And here in Adobe Premiere, I exported 2 different clips, and what I saw was performance that absolutely blew me away. Under a minute exporting a 2-minute 4K clip, and just barely over 4 minutes for a 9-minute clip. And what that's telling me is that given that a 9-minute clip is approximately a factor of 4 larger than a 2-minute clip, is that we're obviously not being hurt by throttling here. Our export time is also increased by a factor of 4 between the 2-minute clip and the 9-minute clip. It is a proportionate increase, so throttling is not an issue here, hurting us in this aspect. Okay, and in 3D Mark Time Spy, I got a score of almost 9,000 from the CPU, which is again approximately what we're seeing across the board, about a 30% increase over last generation Intel offerings. So what that's telling me is if you get a laptop with this Ryzen 4800H, this CPU will greatly benefit games dealing with lots of objects on screen, the real-time strategy like StarCraft, for example, particle effects, things like that are CPU intensive. This CPU will be much stronger for those types of games. So here are my Cinebench R20 results, and coming in at 4,222, these are about 40% stronger than the last laptop that I reviewed on the channel with Intel's offerings. And this is a great test because it's just super intensive. This is probably one of the most taxing tests that you can do on your CPU. And what I saw here is that it actually handled this extended stress test very well. Okay, so by default, Asus Armoury Crate has the power profile enabled when plugged in on charger to performance mode. There's 3 different modes that you can switch between, which is silent, performance, and then turbo. And with performance mode, which is default out of the box, it averaged about 3.7 gigahertz, occasionally throttling down to 3 gigahertz every 7 to 8 seconds. And then on turbo mode, it averaged at 3.7 gigahertz, occasionally throttling down to 3.4 gigahertz every 10 to 15 seconds, occasionally even boosting higher up to 4 gigahertz. So this is really interesting behavior because on the turbo mode, what we're seeing is throttling less often, where those gaps between those drops in clock speeds are 10 to 15 seconds as opposed to 7 to 8 seconds. And then it's throttling down to 3.4 as opposed to 3 gigahertz. So we are indeed getting much better performance on turbo mode with those fans at much higher speeds. It was very loud though, so I don't really think I'll be using it very often, but I guess in certain circumstances, if you really just wanted that performance at any cost, and if you have pretty good headphones that'll block out most of that noise, then it's definitely an option for you to get more performance. And considering that the advertised clock speeds, or the base clock, is at 2.9 gigahertz for this processor with an all-core turbo of 3.8 gigahertz, So in my testing, at least it looks like with my chip that's been binned and that I've received here, it's actually performing better than advertised. So I'm more than happy with this chip in terms of its performance and thermals. And here to back that up, I have a pretty cool picture I shot here from my infrared thermal imaging camera. And what we can see is there are some hot spots up on the keyboard deck near the top, and that's of course closest to the CPU and GPU. But then where you do rest your hands, you know, whether it's around down below on the palm rest or near the arrow keys or the WASD keys, there's those spots are really dark, so we're seeing really good heat dissipation here where, when you're using it, you're probably not going to be feeling the heat that much. Okay, and that about does it for the benchmarks. My takeaway overall from the performance of this laptop is that this is a very capable gaming machine, more than able to hit those 144 Hz frame rates, along with this 144 Hz refresh rate screen that it was paired with. That actually makes it worth having. In terms of creative and productivity work, I couldn't be happier. Basically, if you're doing anything with, whether it's computer-aided design, compiling, programming, computer engineering, if you are a creator, if you're doing video editing, any of those things, you want a laptop with this new Ryzen chip from AMD. You want this chip. You do not want to buy Intel, at least for this year. It absolutely blew away all of the numbers from my past benchmarks of my laptops over the past year with a 9750H from Intel by over 30% in some test cases, which is just huge. Of course, the gap won't be quite as big when comparing with the Intel Core i7-10750H from this year, but the performance delta is still there. If you're looking at frame rates between an Intel laptop from this year compared with this one with the Ryzen 7 4800H, it does come down to single core performance. So gaming experiences will still be very similar. It's those people who use their laptops as all-rounders, as the workhorse. Those people are the users who are going to want this laptop. So my overall thoughts on the Asus TUF A15 gaming laptop are that this is a really strong overall package. My particular variant here with the RTX 2060 actually surpassed my expectations in almost every aspect. Yes, there were a few compromises. I definitely wish that this had a better screen. Okay, that just you can't really get around that. I'm the type of person, if I buy something like a laptop or a monitor, if there's a single dead pixel on there, there is no force on this earth that can stop me from getting that product exchanged or refunded. I don't care what the policy is on dead pixels or margin of acceptable, this is what you can get. No. Okay, but this laptop, it was a good enough, at least in terms of the end result that came from the formula that, went into choosing what to leave in and put in and take out of this laptop. Overall, this was a very good package that I was happy to use every day. Really, this is something that I can easily recommend. And if you can find the GTX 1660 Ti variant actually in stock, if you can find somewhere that is a reputable source that will take your pre-order, I definitely recommend going for it. So for $999, getting the base model of this laptop here with a Ryzen 4800H with the GTX 1660 Ti, you just can't go wrong with it. And that variant's probably going to have even better battery life than mine. So I think in the end, I can say I'm happy that I bought this laptop. I'm glad that this is the first laptop that I've tried from the TUF series lineup from Asus. This didn't really scream cheap at me too much. I wasn't really focusing on the compromises. They just didn't really bother me that much at all. The keyboard works well. It has a Windows Precision trackpad. The speakers are great. Okay, the screen is acceptable. It was bright enough. It was serviceable. And when I was in games, it didn't take away from the immersion or the experience. I was still able to focus on my gameplay, and there was nothing pulling me out of that. So what I can say is, for that price versus performance ratio, this just simply can't be beat. That about does it for my full review of the Asus TUF A15 gaming laptop. I thank you for watching. For my past viewers that are returning, please let me know in the comments down below if you are liking the new format I'm doing in this video. I definitely tried to step up my game, my quality a little bit with some extra effects. I hope what the end result was an overall more professional, better quality video that was more fun to watch. So thanks for sticking around and watching my full review today. Please give me a like on this video if it helped you out. Subscribe if you want to see more, and take a look in the video description for links to my social media handles, my Discord server, and that giveaway. Thanks again for watching. Dev out.